it seems like when you really need to hit it far, you always hit it thin. So Q, I know we've talked about this. What's the number one thing? What do you think is causing all these thin shots when you try to really kill one?
Yeah, a lot of times what I see is what ends up happening is we really try to get that with the hands, and we end up kind of flipping. So if you go kind of no forward shaft lean, you can see his wrist angles here. That trail wrist is really trying to push through. This lead wrist is very cupped. So what we really want to do to really compress the ball and get as much distance as we can is take loft off the face. Because what he's doing when he's got no forward shaft lean is he's turning this 8-iron into like a 9-iron or a pitching wedge.
I actually have a little lie angle finder here, and you'll see this is my club flat with the ground. You can see the amount of loft that's on there right now. And what are the pros doing typically with an 8-iron? What's an 8-iron? Probably 37 or so degrees of loft when it's sitting flat on the ground. I think the pros, what's
about 24 degrees is
really
the dynamic loft, which is basically just the loft that you're presenting to the golf ball at impact. So you see he's really de-lofting that, and that's how they're able to hit the ball a long way, and that's how you're going to be able to get the most distance out of there. So if you go back to that position where you've got no forward shaft lean, you're kind of pushing that club through, so yeah, you got that trail wrist. If we were to take this and just kind of push our hands forward and keep those wrist angles, what would happen is that club face would just go wide open. So if you go like that, yep, the club face would be wide open. And intuitively, we're not going to do that. We're not going to hit a shot 45 degrees out to the right. So what we have to do to get this club face squared up is turn this handle down. That's what we call it, turning that handle down. So you can see with this lead wrist now it's got a little bit of bow in it. It's got maybe even a little bit flat there. And that trail wrist is more in that bent back position. And this feels kind of weak to some people, but it's actually giving you a lot of power because you're hitting that ball like a sledgehammer. So what we want to do now is do a little bit of drill where we're coming down to first parallel in the downswing. So if you go first parallel of the downswing, turn that handle down. So what we're doing is we're turning that club face down toward the ground, and that's going to allow him to continue to open his hips as he's coming into contact with tons of forward shaft lean, and that's going to allow him to really de-loft the face. So let's try and get one now where we're getting a ton of forward shaft lean on there and see how much compression we can get on the ball.
Yeah, so in a nutshell, when most people try to hit it harder, they flip it with the right wrist. And it does a couple things bad for you. When I flip with that right wrist, this feels powerful, but as we talked about, we're adding loft, and also I'm tending to hit back up into the ball. So as I'm adding loft, it's hitting up into the ball, making it thin like we talked about. And also, when this ball is lying flat on the ground, when you don't have forward shaft lean and you lean this shaft back, I don't know if you can see that, but the leading edge is getting higher off the ground. Right here, the leading edge is a solid 1/2 inch or more off the ground. When I have forward shaft lean, the leading edge is on the ground. So I can hit higher on the face when I have more forward shaft lean. So the key there is, like you talked about, and like we're about to do here, is that when I push my hands forward, a lot of times it's going to open the face. So now when I shove my hands forward, if I just make my normal swing, that ball's going way to the right. So maybe I swing faster, I have more forward shaft lean, and I see that thing fly over here, what would be in the water where we're hitting today. And the key is, what Quentin just talked about, is we have to get this rotating of the hands, this closing of the face this way, which is gonna bow that left wrist. It's gonna cock this right wrist back a little bit, and that's when you can really compress it. A lot of players, just like Q mentioned too, feel weak in this position because their wrist is bowed. That's the most powerful position you can be in because the club is releasing in front and it's delivering less loft. It's hammering that golf ball rather than just kind of sliding and slapping across it. So in this one, I'm gonna do exactly what Q told me to do here. I'm gonna make a couple practice swings where I come down last parallel. I'm gonna close that club face down. I'm opening my body as I do this. I'm not just doing this, all arms. I'm making this like a real swing, and I'm feeling like I'm gonna take all the loft off there. I'm not sure if I'll be able to get 24 degrees loft. That's pretty daggone low, but I'm gonna try to get as low as I can here, and let's see how far this shot goes. There we go, hammered that one. Anything for me around 30, you know, I have a tough time getting it as de-lofted as I like to, but I like to see anything under 30 is pretty daggone good. Again, you're taking 6-7 degrees of loft off that club, that's plenty. What was that one on my dynamic loft and my distance?
So dynamic loft was 28.2.
That's
Your
right
club
where I
head
like to be.
speed actually went down a little bit, but you hit it about the same distance, about 172.8 compared to the other ones where your club head speed was more.
Okay. So even though I swung a couple miles an hour faster, what was my club head speed on that one?
96 on that one.
So 2 miles an hour slower, I actually hit it pretty daggone far as I was before. Let's go ahead and try one more here. I'm gonna concentrate on pairing those two things together, making sure I get my big, full, free-flowing turn, and then I also turn that club head down to really compress it. We're gonna see if I can get the highest swing speed and total distance that we have so far and really crank this 8-iron out there. Let's give it a whirl. All right, I know that was lower loft there. Took off really low, nice, clean, thin divot. What was the distance and club head speed there?
All right, so highest club head speed, 99.3 on that one. Dynamic loft got all the way down to 22.5. So you did hit it thin a little bit. So that's why I think you lost a little bit of distance, got a little spinny on you. So you got 172.9 on the distance.
So still pretty solid. Even on a miss hit, like you said, I hit it a fraction thin on the club head. You probably couldn't see that from the flight of the ball. It just sounds slightly different. So even on a miss hit, we're still getting 170 something yards with an 8-iron. We're getting the fastest swing speed, and we're getting it really nice consistent as far as the pattern, the shot dispersion from left to right there too. So you focus on those things, it's gonna free up your swing, and you're gonna hit it a whole heck of a lot farther.